Good morning, everyone. It's Monday, October 17th. Hopefully, everybody had a great weekend. Anyways, let's take a look at the morning charts and see what's unfolding. Here we've got the US dollar index 60-minute chart. And you can see here, just simple visually, you can see that we've got a previous pivot high. We've had the breakout, pull back to that breakout, surge to a new high, and what we've seen now is an extended move to the downside. And this morning we're starting to see a bounce in the US dollar index, possibly breaking through this resistance trend line. So we might actually see the dollar maybe even start to work its way higher here and have a little bit of a bounce. And of course, that is what we've been anticipating for about the last week, just waiting for it to settle into a support zone and start to show signs of reversal and bounce. And of course, that will pull stocks and commodities back down, and then we'll reanalyze depending on how the dollar moves up, the price pattern that it does, if it's a bullish pattern or if it's a bearish kind of rising wedge showing that the US dollar could eventually break down. But if it's a bullish sign, then we would actually see the US dollar possibly head back up to a double high, meaning we're going to see much lower equities prices. So what we're going to do is we're just going to sit back and we're just going to let the US dollar start to unfold and break out here. We're going to see how stocks and commodities react, and we're going to dig into the price action of each index and commodity and just see how things unfold and continue to reanalyze over the next couple of days, looking for a possible entry point. Now, taking a quick look at the crude oil. This morning we're seeing the US dollar have a little bit of a bounce. This is a 4-hour chart of crude oil, and we've pulled down a little bit in the past couple hours. Overall, we have this rising wedge here that we traded a little while ago. We ended up taking a short position pretty much right up here, covering our position down here using the SCO ETF. We've made about 18% return there. And right now we're starting to see another more or less rising wedge up into this resistance zone again. So it's going to be interesting. It might be an opportunity to take a short play for a downdraft. Don't think it's going to go extremely far, but there's potential for still a pretty solid move to the downside. I'm going to keep my eye on that today. We could end up taking a short position buying an inverse ETF. So we don't actually go short, we just buy a bear ETF or an inverse ETF, you can call it, which goes up in value as crude oil goes down. So we're keeping our eyes peeled for a position there. Looking at the gold chart, this is the 4-hour chart of gold. You can see we've zoomed back a few months. We've got a pretty big window area. We've got a very similar pattern as what we saw in crude oil. You got this rising wedge starting to reach that apex, and overall price has been rising on declining volume, not a very strong sign. And if the US dollar has a nice bounce, we're probably going to see gold come down to a double bottom, possibly even come down to around the 1450, 1440 area, which is a substantial drop from where we are right now. So keeping my eyes open for a play there. I'm more and more starting to like the short side setup for gold. I know a lot of people are bullish on gold, and I am too long term, but overall, this price pattern is starting to look ripe for a shorting opportunity. The one thing I'm cautious about with gold and silver shorting it is that we are still in a long-term major bull market for these metals, and it doesn't take much for price to break out of this pattern and really make a quick move literally within minutes. And if you don't have your stop orders in the computer, you can actually take a pretty nasty loss on these metals very quickly, because they're much thinner traded than an index, and they move much faster. So anyways, that's kind of how I feel and where we stand there. Right now it's still looking like we're going to see lower prices. That being said, we can still continue to see a bit higher highs as it continues to rise into this wedge, but overall I have a feeling we could see prices decline. And of course, we are coming into this previous pivot low, which will act as resistance also. Now, taking a look at the silver chart, it is unfolding very similar to gold. And again, we've just got this more or less bearish pattern still unfolding, this kind of more or less a pennant for silver. And of course, volume is declining, and price has been more or less trying to hold up and go sideways. And usually a pennant is a sideways it's just a continuation pattern, usually meaning you'll see another move to the downside. So that's kind of where we stand with that. But again, silver is even more volatile than gold, and you could literally get instant bar straight back up, say into this resistance level here. So you got to be very cautious with silver. Now taking a look at the bonds, pull up the TLT ETF. This is the 60-minute chart, and I'm just going to go the 4 hours so we see most of these charts on the same time frame, or else it gets a little confusing. Overall, if I was to zoom way out on this, you can see where we're trading. I pointed out when we get that blow off top there we had several weeks ago, most likely it's going to be a top going in, and we'll have to start looking for a short setup. So we went right up to a previous high, and if we zoom into today, you can see, just pull up a little drawing tool here. We had a nice surge to a high, pullback, nice surge to a new high. Looks as though we've broken this support trend line, and prices are starting to get choppy. That's usually a sign of uncertainty. Hopefully, if with any luck, we're going to get some type of rising bear flag up into here, which will hopefully come into a resistance zone. And if we do get that, then we could be looking for a nice short play on the using the TBT fund, which is an inverse fund to bonds, which means as this bond prices drop, we see the TBT fund rise. So if you look at this chart and I show you the TBT, you can see it's just a mirror image, just flipped upside down. So we got the same chart pattern. You've got these lows, and what we'd be looking for right now is simply a little bit of a pullback, and from there we'd be looking to take a long entry and see a move. There's pretty big potential in the bonds, in my opinion. Don't want to jump the gun on it though. It's still major safe haven, and that's where money goes when fear hits the market. So until the fear dissipates, I think we got to be very cautious of trying to short bonds. But there is, you can see the potential here. We've got 20 all the way to 32. There's 50% potential that we could see in this pretty quickly if it unfolds the way we want it to. Now taking a look at the SP 500. Here is the SP 500 daily chart, and I put the 5-period moving average on it. I find the 5-period to be extremely useful. Usually you find the market pull back down to, in an uptrend, it'll pull back to the 5-period moving average and usually have a bounce. And in a downtrend, it usually stays underneath. Anytime it touches the 5-period, selling pressure kicks in and continues to push it down. So that's kind of where we stand. Of course, in the sideways market, like we've seen August, September, moving averages really don't help you at all. You end up playing, focusing on overbought and oversold conditions and intraday chart patterns to try and time these waves, which we did extremely well. We pocketed about, after it's all said and done, our last trade, we took a 6% loss, shorting right over here, anticipating the continued trend down, but instead it went against us and we took a 6% loss there. But overall in September, August, September, we pocketed about 36-38% return in this noise where most people pretty much got their head handed to them. So we're looking pretty good, and right now we're waiting for the market to make up its mind, either break to the upside and have some type of pullback, or to start to break down and actually form a bearish flag, and we'll actually be looking to continue to play the short side. But right now it has shaken itself out of this sideways trend, and in my opinion we're just kind of waiting to see what it's going to do next before we jump on the bandwagon, because I see it now as being more of a 50-50 bet, and I don't like to trade those. Now taking a quick look at the futures chart of the SP 500, so you can see 24-hour clock. Here we've got Friday's price action. Here is the regular trading hours. The heavy volume again is regular trading hours, 9:30 to 4 Eastern time. So this is what we saw on Friday. We saw a move down in the morning. Light volume fade back up. I was anticipating a selling into the close. Instead, we ended up starting to see a stair-stepping action and some pretty good, I think, short covering actually into the close, and it pushed it even higher. And I did point out in the morning before we saw in the morning video before the market opened, I pointed out this is pretty much a 50-50 bet. Didn't really want to get involved on Friday because we could see anything happen, and I warned of that. And it just goes to show you really don't know what the market is going to do on a day-to-day basis, but overall we had a nice strong downtrend with strong selling volume. We did see a nice low volume fade, bounce back up here, and I was anticipating we're going to see a move to new lows into the session. Instead, we actually saw a lot of short covering kick in and buying, and we actually saw stair-stepping action up. So I pretty much saw that coming in pre-market. It was a pretty serious week in the stock market, huge rally, and I didn't know who was going to get caught on the wrong side, if it was going to be the shorts or the longs, and which way the market was going to go into the close. It looks as though a lot of people who were still short the market just bit the bullet and said, get me out of here, and they bought back their short positions, and that fed the market up into the close. Now in futures trading, overnight tonight, or sorry, this morning, we've seen the market continue to run higher, and just recently, since about 4 o'clock, we've seen some pretty good selling come back down. So we're actually going to open pretty much flat at this time on the market, and we'll pretty much have to see how things go from there. Now if I just zoom out on this chart, you can see overall where we stand. We're had a huge run in the market. It's starting to look like it's losing momentum and starting to round out, and we're just going to see how things play out in the next couple of trading sessions. Anyways, that's it for now, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye bye.